The 2025 Grammys are upon us, and in the Album of the Year category, Taylor Swift actually has a chance to extend a lead that she just earned with her last Album of the Year win with Midnights, which allowed her to break a 4-way tie, which was for a long time a 3-way tie between Frank Sinatra, Stevie Wonder, and Paul Simon. For a long time, they were tied with 3 wins for Album of the Year. Then when Taylor Swift won it with Folklore, that was a few years ago, she entered that tie and became the 4th artist to have 3 Album of the Year wins. And then if you fast forward a few years to just last year, after she dropped Midnights, she became the #1 standalone leader in Album of the Year Grammy wins, which, you know, Midnights, most believe, like from critics to a lot of her fans as well, it was a pretty good album, but it wasn't like, to me, a top 3 Taylor Swift album. Like if you consider the other Taylor albums that won Album of the Year, it was Fearless, which I believe was her 2nd album. I think Speak Now was her 3rd and Fearless was her 2nd. So Fearless won it, 1989 won it, and then a few years later, Folklore won it. I don't have a problem with any of those 3 winning Album of the Year. But Midnights, by comparison, especially if you consider the other nominees that year, you had Lana Del Rey's Did You Know There's a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard? You had SZA's SOS. You had Boy Genius with The Record. You had some albums that I thought were probably more deserving of Album of the Year than Taylor Swift's Midnights. But I mean, it was a huge banner year for Taylor Swift. She had the Eras Tour. She became like the 2nd artist ever to be Time Person of the Year, and she has for the last several years been re-recording her first like 6 or so albums because of the drama that unfolded between her old record label, and her former manager Scooter Braun. So she basically re-recorded Taylor versions of all of her early albums so she could kind of reclaim her publishing, her masters. Excellent chess move. And those re-recordings have like little nuanced differences that make them kind of interesting. They're a little bit different than the originals and stuff, but I mean, but the essence of the songs are the same. So yeah, Taylor's been on a tear, no doubt about it. She's got one of the greatest careers in the past like 20 years, or if not more. Again, she's got more Album of the Year wins than anybody. I just don't think that Midnights necessarily deserved it, and Midnights is probably a better album than this latest one that she dropped, The Tortured Poets Department, which again, it's not a bad album, but by Taylor Swift standards, it's not as good as like Folklore. So if you compare that with some of the other nominees this year, like Charli XCX had a huge year with Brat. Like this was a breakthrough moment for Charli XCX. Billie Eilish dropped Hit Me Hard and Soft. Both Sabrina Carpenter and Chappell Roan are up for all 4 major categories because both of them are also Best New Artist nominees. And then you've got Beyonce with Cowboy Carter. Huge album, just a stacked album. That's like it was a very long album, tons of songs. It was kind of country adjacent, but you had all kinds of genres kind of blending into that recipe. Excellent album, tons of good songs on there. Beyonce's vocal performances are just unbelievable on a lot of these songs, just outstanding vocal performances. Production is just so on point. So yeah, it just feels like this year, they can't give it to Taylor Swift again. I mean, can they? Like Taylor Swift would then have 5, and then the 3 people tied for 2nd, Stevie Wonder, Frank Sinatra, and Paul Simon, would again have 3. So you would have those 3 artists with 3. You've got a few like U2, John Lennon, and George Harrison, because they both had one with the Beatles. Sgt. Pepper's won Album of the Year, and then they both had solo albums that won Album of the Year. So you've got a few artists that have 2. I think Adele also has 2. So this is like rarefied air. Like they don't just give Album of the Year to anybody. I mean, most good artists, even great artists, have never won Album of the Year. Like think about who some of your favorite artists are, or think about the artists that you consider to be the biggest artists. They might not have any Album of the Year wins. Taylor Swift has a chance at winning her fifth this year. By the way, a really good artist who's actually nominated for Album of the Year, Jacob Collier. He was like a child prodigy. I don't think he's got a chance at winning because again, the category is stacked. This is what I consider to be the most prestigious Grammy category out of all the categories. So I don't think he's got a shot, but give Jacob Collier a listen when you can. Like he's obviously impressing the hell out of the voting members of the Recording Academy, because this is actually the 2nd time he's been nominated for Album of the Year. And some of you might not even know who Jacob Collier is. And then you've got, Andre 3000 with his ambient jazz, new age, new blue sun. He's won it in the past with Outkast, with that Speaker Box Love Below, the final Outkast album, but I did not expect to see his ambient flute-based jazz album, New Blue Sun. I didn't expect to see it here, nominated for Album of the Year. But yeah, Taylor Swift again has a chance to extend her historic run of Album of the Year Grammy wins. Do you think that they're going to give it to her a 5th time? I mean, she just won it with Midnight's last year. Are they going to give her back-to-back with Midnight's and the Tortured Poets Department, 2 albums that most don't consider to be top 3 Taylor Swift albums? I think that would be a little bit wild. Just me personally. I actually think that this might be the year that Beyonce finally wins Album of the Year. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. And again, this isn't throwing any shade. I'm just pointing out that Taylor Swift actually has a chance at pulling away from the pack with how many Album of the Year Grammy wins she would have won if she wins at this year's Grammys. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you love music like I do. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.